Welcome back to the deep dive. You guys sent in some really cool stuff this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going deep on the Bible this time.
Okay.
Ancient myths,
Right.
and the idea that maybe there were some, advanced beings
Okay.
that we don't really think about when we think about history.
Yeah, it's interesting how those topics all kind of
Yeah,
intertwine.
totally. And the main thing we're looking at is this YouTube transcript
Okay.
with two scholars named Mauro Biglino and Paul Wallace.
Mhm.
And they really get into like the original Hebrew terms
Oh, wow.
used in the Bible.
Yeah, their analysis is really something,
Oh, yeah.
especially when you look at like
Yeah.
words like God and eternity.
And they're saying that that maybe the Bible is really about
Yeah.
humanity interacting with beings that were like a lot more
Okay.
technologically advanced
I think
than
we
we
usually-
usually picture.
So like what kind of things are they focusing on?
So one of the big ones is this word Elohim, which is often translated as God.
Right.
But they point out that it's actually plural in Hebrew.
Plural. So not just one God.
Yeah,
Like we,
that changes things.
yeah, that really changes things.
Big time.
Yeah. And, it kind of gets lost in translation.
Oh, really?
And it makes you wonder why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Elohim means like a bunch of powerful beings.
Right.
But how does that change how we understand like the stories in Genesis?
We'll just imagine reading Genesis.
Okay.
But instead of one God creating everything, you have this whole group of
Yeah.
powerful beings all working together.
That's a totally different picture.
Yeah, it really adds a whole new dimension.
It really does. It makes you wonder like what were their individual roles? Like
Yeah.
how did they interact with each other?
Exactly. And this idea of like a council or a pantheon
Uh-huh.
of powerful beings, it's not just in the Bible.
Oh, really?
You see it in other ancient mythologies too.
Okay.
Like the Sumerian pantheon, for example. Oh yeah, with all those gods.
Yeah.
So this idea of multiple powerful beings
Mhm.
was like a pretty common belief back then.
Seems like it.
Yeah, it makes you think, like, were they all describing the same
Right.
kind of events?
Yeah.
But just using different words?
Interesting.
Yeah. And speaking of words, there's another name
Okay.
that's translated as God
Okay.
or Almighty,
Mhm.
and that's El Shai.
El Shai. So is that one plural too? Like Elohim?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
The meaning of El Shai,
Uh-huh.
it's actually debated by scholars.
Really?
Some think it might be connected to mountains
Okay.
or plains.
Interesting.
So maybe not all powerful,
Right.
but powerful in a specific area.
Like a local god?
Yeah, and there's actually a story about this in 1 Kings 20,
Okay.
where the Syrians, they believe that the Israelites' God is only powerful in the hills.
So they're saying like, oh, your God
Yeah.
only works in the hills.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and that God is often connected with El Shai.
Right. So it's like they believed in regional deities,
And-
each with their own little domain.
So not this like all-powerful God that we
Well,
usually think of.
Yeah.
that really changes things.
It suggests a very different world
Yeah.
where different powerful entities
Uh-huh.
maybe govern different regions and different peoples.
That's wild. So we have Elohim,
Mm-hmm.
this group of powerful beings,
Right.
and El Shai, who maybe is just powerful
Yeah.
over a certain area.
Like a local powerful being.
Yeah, it paints a very different picture of the world
It does.
than we usually imagine.
It does.
But what about Yahweh?
Oh, Yahweh.
That's like the big one, the name we all know.
Yeah.
Where does that fit into all of this?
Well, that's where things get even more mysterious. The meaning and origins of Yahweh
Yeah.
are actually unclear,
Really?
even to scholars.
But it's like all over the Bible.
I know.
How could it be unclear?
Well, the transcript points out that even Moses,
Okay.
when he first encounters this being,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't know the name Yahweh.
Wow.
So it wasn't like a commonly used name
Yeah.
at the time.
So how did it become like the main name for God?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And Biglino and Wallace actually suggest
Yeah.
that Yahweh might not even be a Hebrew word.
What? No way.
Yeah.
Where would it come from then?
They propose that maybe it was adopted
Mhm.
from another source,
Like what?
possibly a non-human one.
Whoa. Okay, so we're saying Yahweh might not even be a human name.
Right, that's what they're suggesting.
Wow. So if Yahweh isn't the ultimate God we've always thought of,
Right.
then who or what is this being?
Big questions.
Yeah, and how did this name become like
Right.
so central to the whole story?
Yeah, these are some of the mysteries that they're really exploring.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and leads to another interesting term, olam.
Olam. Okay.
which we usually translate as eternity.
Right.
But Biglino and Wallace have a different idea.
Okay, eternity is a pretty big concept. Like, what else could it mean?
Well, some scholars argue that Olam refers to a place
Okay.
or a realm that's hidden
Okay.
or beyond human comprehension.
So not about time, but about a place that we don't know.
Exactly.
Wow.
And there's actually a passage in Ecclesiastes
Okay.
that mentions Olam
Mm-hmm.
in the context of hidden knowledge
Okay.
that humans can't grasp.
So it's like there's this whole world of knowledge that's out there, but we just can't get to it.
We can't understand it.
Wow, that's a trip.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about these powerful beings.
Yeah.
Like, could Olam be
Yeah.
where they come from?
That's one of the questions they're asking. Like, if they're not from here,
Yeah.
then where are they from?
Yeah.
Could Olam hold the answer?
Wow. Okay, so we've gone from like one all-powerful God to a bunch of powerful beings,
Yeah.
maybe from some place we can't even understand.
That's right.
This is getting really interesting.
I know. We're just getting started.
Okay, well, let's take a second to like process this
Yeah, good idea.
before we go any further.
Let's take a breath.
Yeah, this is a lot.
It is.
All right, so before we were talking about how like kavod and ruach
Yeah.
might actually be describing like ancient technology.
Right.
It's
It's a big shift.
it's a lot to take in.
It is.
Like the stuff that we think is supernatural could just be like technology that they didn't.
to understand.
Yeah, they couldn't understand it.
Right.
And but there's more, right?
Oh, yeah, there's more.
Biglino and Wallace go into some other Hebrew terms
Yeah.
that add to this whole other interpretation.
They really complicate the picture.
Okay, so give me some examples.
Well, one of them is El,
El, okay.
another name that's often translated as God.
So we have Elohim, we
Yeah.
have El Shai,
Right.
now we have El.
Seems like God had a lot of different meanings
Yeah,
back then.
right.
Yeah, and what's interesting about El is that it's often used
Okay.
to talk about powerful beings
Mm-hmm.
that are connected to a specific place
Okay.
or a specific tribe.
So not like the god of everything,
Right.
like the god of this place.
More like a tribal deity
Okay.
or a god of a particular domain.
So it's almost like a map
yeah,
with different gods
Right.
controlling different areas.
exactly. And you see this in phrases like El of Bethel
Uh-huh.
or El of Seir.
Okay.
These weren't seen as like universal gods,
Right.
but more like powerful beings connected to specific locations.
So again, not this idea of like one god over everything.
It really challenges that
Yeah.
monotheistic view.
It's more like polytheism,
Yeah, more like polytheism.
like the Greeks and the Romans.
Exactly. And remember how we were talking about Elohim
Yeah, being plural.
being plural?
Yeah.
Well, there's another term
Okay.
that goes along with that. Ben Elohim.
Ben Elohim,
Okay.
which means sons of Elohim. Sons of Elohim.
Or children of the powerful ones.
Okay, so where does that show up?
Well, it shows up in a few places.
Okay.
One of them is Genesis 6,
Genesis 6, okay.
the passage about the
Yeah,
sons of God
right, the ones that come down
that come down to earth.
and have kids with humans.
Right.
So if we're taking Elohim literally
Yeah.
as these powerful beings,
It suggests a much more
yeah,
physical interaction.
right, like they're literally
Yeah.
mating with humans.
It could be offspring
Yeah.
or maybe representatives
Okay.
of these powerful beings.
So it's not just a symbolic story,
Right.
it's like a literal account
It could be.
of them interacting with humans.
It could be.
Wow. And they say this phrase also shows up in Deuteronomy.
Yeah, in Deuteronomy, it talks about the
Okay.
division of nations
Mm-hmm.
amongst the Ben Elohim,
So it's like they were assigned different territories to rule over.
almost like a cosmic game of Risk.
Right.
Yeah, with these powerful beings.
Dividing up the world.
Yeah, vying for control.
That's a really different way of
Yeah.
looking at like the power structure
It is.
of the Bible.
Yeah, it's more complex hierarchy
Okay.
with these Ben Elohim
Mm-hmm.
serving as like intermediaries
Between the Elohim.
between humanity
Okay.
and the Elohim.
It makes you wonder, like,
Yeah.
what were they doing here?
Yeah, what was their agenda?
Were they good? Were they bad?
Were they benevolent rulers?
Right.
Yeah.
So many questions.
So many questions.
And speaking of interactions between humans and powerful beings,
Yes.
what about angels?
Malachim,
Malachim. Okay.
often translated as angels.
Yeah, we think of them as like
Right.
purely
Cowardly beings.
Yeah.
But Biglino and Wallace,
Yeah.
they have a different take on that.
Okay.
They suggest that Malachim might not be spiritual beings,
Okay.
but more like messengers
Okay.
or envoys,
Like representative.
representatives of the powerful ones
Okay.
sent to communicate.
So not from heaven,
Right.
but from these powerful beings.
They're like emissaries
Okay.
or ambassadors.
Which makes sense because they're always
Yeah.
showing up and like
Yeah, they have
interacting with people.
a very physical presence.
Yeah. Like Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Exactly.
That's like a,
Yeah, that's not so spiritual.
if they're a physical being,
Right.
it's a whole other story.
It becomes a literal encounter,
Right.
a test of strength.
Wow. So it's like
Yeah.
the line between spiritual and physical.
It gets blurry.
Yeah, totally blurry.
Yeah.
So we thought they were spiritual.
Right.
Maybe they were just something else.
Maybe they were something else entirely.
Like maybe they were aliens or I don't know.
Who knows?
It's like we're uncovering this
Yeah,
hidden history.
a hidden history.
And it's not just about these beings.
Right.
It's also about technology.
Yes, we talked about kavod and ruach
Yeah.
as maybe being spacecraft
Yeah.
and propulsion.
Right.
But there's more.
Okay, give me more.
So there's this word Shem,
Shem. Okay.
which is often translated as name,
Right.
but Biglino and Wallace,
Mhm.
they argue it could also mean like a blueprint
Okay.
or a formula.
So like when God gives Adam dominion over
Yeah.
all the animals by naming them,
Right.
it's not just naming them.
It's more like,
It's like giving him the
yeah,
blueprint.
yeah, the knowledge
Yeah.
of their essence.
How to make them.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this connects to another term,
Okay.
dot,
Dot.
which means knowledge.
So if Shem is the blueprint,
Right.
Dot is like,
It's like the know-how,
yeah, the actual understanding of
the
it.
deeper understanding.
So like in the Garden of Eden,
Yeah,
when they eat from the tree of knowledge,
right.
that's not just like,
Yeah.
oh, you did something bad.
It's not just about morality.
Maybe it's like
They got
little-
access to some
Yeah,
technology.
forbidden knowledge.
That was too powerful
Yeah, too powerful.
or too dangerous.
Too dangerous for them to have.
Wow, and this reminds me of the Nephilim,
Ah, the Nephilim.
The giant, which sounds so mythological.
It's right out of mythology.
But they're saying that maybe the Nephilim were just beings that had
That had a
advanced knowledge or technology.
Okay, so their size and their
Yeah.
abilities and everything.
It could be.
It was because of that.
Yeah. Maybe even genetic engineering.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Genetic engineering in the Bible.
That's what they're suggesting.
That's a big one.
It is.
Okay, so like how do they get there?
The transcript mentions how the Nephilim,
Yeah.
they're always doing these
Yeah,
extraordinary
They're
things.
building big structures, like
Yeah.
the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, maybe they had technology.
We don't even know about.
We can't even imagine.
Yeah, so it's not so crazy to think
Right.
that they could build those things.
Exactly.
Wow, it's like we're putting together
Yeah.
this whole puzzle,
It's like a puzzle.
with all these different pieces.
Each term
Yeah.
reveals another piece.
And it's pointing to this like
Yeah.
hidden history
What hidden history.
that's so different
So different
from what we've always been taught.
from what we thought we knew.
Yeah, this is mind-blowing.
It is.
And it makes me think like
yeah.
what else is hidden in there?
Exactly what other secrets are waiting to be discovered.
But we're not done yet.
Not even close.
There's one more piece
There's one more piece of the puzzle,
that we need to talk about.
and it's a big one.
Okay.
Hit me with it.
Genetic engineering.
Whoa. Hold on.
Yeah,
Genetic engineering in the Bible.
that's what they're suggesting.
You know, I got it here. All right. So we're talking genetic engineering in the Bible.
This is big stuff.
It is a big claim.
So where do they even start with this?
Well, they look at this word yatsar,
Yatsar. Okay.
which is often translated as to form
All right.
or to create.
So like basic creation words?
Yeah, pretty standard stuff.
What's so special about this word?
Well, they argue that yatsar could mean
Okay.
like shaping or modifying.
So not just creating from nothing.
Right, more like taking something
Okay.
and changing it.
And they think this could be on like a genetic level.
That's what they're proposing.
Wow. Okay. And do they have any examples of this in the Bible?
Well, they point to the creation of Adam.
From the dust of the ground.
Right.
Okay. So how is that genetic engineering?
Well, if we think of yatsar as modifying something,
All right.
it could be like God took some existing material and manipulated it,
Like maybe with some kind of technology,
possibly.
create Adam,
It's like a more scientific process.
then just like poof, there's a human.
Exactly.
That's so wild.
It is.
Okay. What other examples are there?
Well, the creation of Eve from Adam's rib.
Oh, yeah.
That's another one.
Okay, so we usually think of that as like a symbolic
Right.
kind of story.
But through this lens,
Yeah.
it could be a literal
Like he took a rib
extraction
and did something to it
and manipulated it
to make Eve.
to create a female counterpart.
Like a clone almost.
It's a bit like that.
That's wild. And what about the Nephilim?
The giants.
Yeah, the giants with their crazy...
Right? They had unusual abilities.
Yeah.
And they were associated with advanced knowledge.
Right.
Maybe they were genetically modified.
So it's like there was this ancient civilization that knew how to like
That had the technology
mess with DNA.
to alter life itself.
That's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It really is.
But it was happening like thousands of years ago.
That's what Biglino and Wallace are suggesting.
That's incredible. So what does this all mean?
Well, it means that we're still learning
Yeah.
about these ancient texts.
We're constantly uncovering new things.
New layers of meaning.
It's like this deep dive has opened up
It
a
has.
whole new way of looking at the Bible.
And it shows how important it is
Yeah.
to think critically,
To question what we've always been told.
not to be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, and to consider different perspectives.
Exactly.
Because there might be more to the story
There's always more to learn.
than we realize.
Absolutely.
This has been such a mind-blowing deep dive.
It has been fascinating.
We started with like the idea of one God,
Right.
and now we're talking about genetic engineering.
It's been a wild ride.
It really has, and it just goes to show
Yeah.
that these ancient texts are full of mystery
They are.
and that we're still figuring them out.
Absolutely.
So for anyone listening who's like, wow, I
Yeah.
want to learn more about this.
Definitely check out Mauro Biglino and Paul Wallace.
Yeah, they're the ones
They've done some amazing research.
who really got us thinking about this.
Their work is really groundbreaking.
Oh. Yeah, and this deep dive has given us so much to think about.
I know. It's really challenged my own assumptions.
Yeah, me too. And I have a feeling we'll be
Yeah.
coming back to these ideas again and again.
I think so too.
Because it's really opened up
It's opened up
a whole new world of possibilities.
a whole new way of looking at the world.
Yeah, and maybe even our place in it.
Exactly.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you found it as mind-expanding
Yeah,
as we did.
as we did.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the world.